Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC Vegas 78, Vicente Luque versus Rafael dos Anjos just ended, and this is going to be my full card post-fight. I'm going to go through every single fight on the card and give you my reaction and breakdown to each fight. Starting off with the first fight of the night, Juliana Miller versus Luana Santos. Juliana Miller gets finished via TKO in the first round. Looked okay in the first 30 seconds, but really was throwing wild winging shots. Had some success. They clinch up, they break from the clinch. Santos hurts her with a right hand. And basically, after that right hand that hurts her, it's over from there. Santos just swarms her badly, chasing her all over the cage, landing big shots, and eventually TKOs her, standing TKO up against the fence. Juliana Miller looked horrible in this fight. She has some of the worst striking I've ever seen. I knew that going into this fight, but she looked bad even before she was hurt. After she was hurt, she looked completely drunk, out on her feet, and she was trying to fight back, but she was just getting brutally battered by Luana Santos. And Juliana Miller's probably the worst Ultimate Fighter winner I have ever seen in my entire life. I can't name a worse Ultimate Fighter winner ever. Just shows you how low the barrier of entry to the UFC and to the Ultimate Fighter in general has lowered over the past few years. But Luana Santos goes out there, gets a TKO win in the first round. Impressive for women's MMA to get a TKO in the first round. So shout out to Luana Santos. Moving up on the card, Blackshear versus Jose Johnson. Blackshear gets a first round twister. Very, very impressive. Went out there and just started bum rushing Jose Johnson. Landed some good shots, but Jose Johnson was down to brawl. Landed some good shots himself. Blackshear eventually looks for a single leg. I think he caught a kick. I can't remember for sure. But has one of Johnson's legs. Eventually trips him down after holding that leg up. And just starts controlling him a little bit. Johnson works to the fence. Works his way back up. Gets taken back down. Blackshear basically has his back. And, has kind of one leg entangled, and Jose Johnson's in a bad position. And Blackshear's on his back. You can see there's kind of a twister set up there. And then Johnson decides to try to throw some back elbows. Blackshear recognizes it, uses it to set up a twister, gets a first round twister. And, a lot of the times when you see these twisters, it's like guys making massive mistakes. Johnson, I know he made a mistake by throwing that back elbow, but Blackshear, you could tell he was waiting for it because his face was kind of wide open. And Johnson threw that elbow, it landed, but Blackshear snatched it up, put it around his neck to snatch up that twister right away. And to get a first round twister, I mean, this is the third ever twister we've seen in the UFC. Very impressive from Blackshear. And he looked good in this fight. I mean, he was super aggressive. His striking looked pretty good. And his wrestling looked good. And his jiu-jitsu looked good. I mean, to find a twister, I know Jose Johnson was on short notice, but still, I think a very impressive performance from Blackshear. Moving up on the card, Montserrat Ruiz versus Jaqueline Amorim. Ruiz basically got dominated. The first round, 10-8 for Amorim. Second round, 10-8 for Amorim. And then in the first and second round, it was basically rinse and repeat. I think the first round, Amorim got an early takedown, eventually gets to the mount, starts doing some ground and pound, starts looking for arm bars, and she got the back for a bit and looked for rear naked chokes. And I picked Amorim by first round rear naked choke. She was so close, but she couldn't find these submissions. She did some decent ground and pound, controlled her for the entire fight, or entire first round. Second round, I think Amorim pulled guard, sweeped her, ended up on top, more of the same, almost TKO'd her by the end of the second round. If she would have just kept throwing instead of looking for submissions, she probably would have finished her at the end of the second round. But she was saved by the bell. Third round, it looked like Amorim was starting to fade. She pulls guard, and then she can't get Ruiz off the top of her. And Ruiz is not really doing a whole lot of damage. But finally, Amorim uses a Kimura to sweep, ends up on top, and says, you know what? I'm abandoning submission attempts. I'm just going to beat her up from full mount because she has no defense for it. She can't get out of it. And the only time she's been able to find relief is when I go for submission. So she just nonstop starts raining down ground and pound shots and eventually gets a third round TKO. Good win for Jaqueline Amorim. I mean, her last fight, she gassed out. She answered that question in this fight. How was her cardio? Montserrat Ruiz had nothing on the ground. She had no BJJ. I know she avoided the submissions, which is a plus because Amorim is very, very good with her BJJ. But outside of that, Ruiz just got completely dominated in this fight. And even when Ruiz was on top in the third round, she did absolutely nothing with it and eventually gets swept. So I had the first two rounds 10-8 for Amorim in this fight, and she absolutely dominated and then finds the TKO finish in the third round. Moving up on the card, we have Josh Parisian versus Martin Buday. Martin Buday hurts Josh Parisian early, starts swarming him badly, but Josh Parisian's moving just enough to survive. And I thought I saw the writing on the wall. I thought for sure Martin Buday is going to gas out and he's going to eventually get finished by Parisian. Parisian looked tired as hell too, even when he's getting beat up and not really throwing a whole bunch. And then eventually Parisian kind of looks for a takedown. You have Buday just kind of dig the underhooks, reverse the position, end up on top, and said, you know what, I'm just going to take this Kimura. Steps over his head, even though they're close up against the fence, is able to find the room to lock up the Kimura, gets it done in the first round. Who would have picked Martin Buday first round Kimura? What does it really mean? It doesn't really mean much to get a win over Josh Parisian in his butt crack, but again, the heavyweight division isn't that good, so Martin Buday is probably going to be ranked in the top 15 after this win. And his striking looked pretty good, and his cardio looked pretty good. I know it only lasted a round, but I thought for sure he was going to blow himself out throwing nonstop combinations in the first round. He didn't, and he still looked relatively fresh at the end of the fight after he got the Kimura. And he showed good fight IQ because he realized, okay, I'm not getting the finish here. Let me taper back. Parisian shot in on a desperation takedown. He reverses it and then finds the Kimura. So I thought Buday looked very good in this fight, even though it's against a super low-level opponent in Josh Parisian. Moving up on the card, we had Francis Marshall versus Isaac Dulgarian. What a performance by Isaac Dulgarian. He got a takedown early, took his time, controlled Francis Marshall, didn't do a whole lot of damage, but was throwing some ground and pound. Eventually just makes his way to full mount towards the last minute and a half of the round, and he realizes, look, I only have a little bit of time left. Let me prioritize doing damage. Let me prioritize landing some ground and pound. Because even if Francis Marshall scrambles out of here, it doesn't matter because the round's about to end anyway. And he starts raining down some of the most brutal ground and pound I've ever seen. Eventually kind of gets a high mount where he's sitting on the chest of Marshall. Just starts throwing brutal ground and pound elbows and eventually gets stopped in the first round. Late first round TKO for Isaac Dulgarian. And I was very impressed because Marshall's a good grappler. I picked Marshall to win this fight because Dulgarian had looked really good but hadn't fought the best competition. Excellent UFC debut for Isaac Dulgarian. Couldn't have went any better for him. I mean, he dominated. And I can't wait to see who Isaac Dulgarian fights in his second UFC fight because we've never seen him out of the first round. I'm curious how he looks if he ever gets out of the first round. And honestly, Francis Marshall is a difficult opponent for your UFC debut, especially when you're like 5-0, like Dulgarian is, and coming off injuries and a long layoff. And he went out there and made Francis Marshall look like he did not even belong in the UFC. Gets the first round TKO. Can't wait to see Isaac Dulgarian in his next UFC fight. Moving up on the card, Terrance McKinney versus Mike Breeden. Terrance McKinney went out there and beat the crap out of Mike Breeden. Terrance McKinney stepped in on short notice. This was exactly what he was supposed to do to Mike Breeden. Make him look like he didn't even belong in the UFC because Mike Breeden really doesn't belong in the UFC, and Terrance McKinney went out there, was landing the straight left all day, hurting him with the straight left, landing head kicks that were sneaking through the guard, was ripping to the body, was just throwing combination after combination. He was kneeing to the body as well, and just finished Mike Breeden in the first round, made him look like, I mean, Mike Breeden, he's really bottom of the barrel UFC caliber, fringe UFC fighter, really doesn't really belong, and Terrance McKinney made it look that way in this fight. Went out there and absolutely destroyed him in the first round. I don't even know if Mike Breeden landed a shot. I don't even know if Mike Breeden threw a shot in this fight. Terrance McKinney went out there and destroyed him in the first round. And Terrance McKinney's kind of been in his last few fights, like maintaining his cardio and trying to grapple a little bit and not being that original Terrance McKinney that we all saw go out there and be super explosive and look for finishes. And it's kind of backfired for him in recent fights. This fight, he said, you know what? I'm going to go out there and look to finish Mike Breeden. And that's what he did. I think he made a smart decision stepping in on short notice against Mike Breeden at UFC Vegas 78. Moving up on the card, Marcus McGhee versus JP Buys. Marcus McGhee just slamming leg kicks early. JP Buys can't close the distance. McGhee lands a 1-2 that hurts Buys early. Then soon after that, lands a nasty right hand that basically knocks out Buys. He lands like a left hook as Buys is going down to the back of the head, but grazed the back of the head, and then doesn't even follow up. He knows that JP Buys is done. Referee steps in after like a weird, awkward, 5 seconds. He realizes Buys is done. Steps in. McGhee doesn't follow up, but McGhee, already in his mid-30s. I want to see him get a big step up in competition in his next fight. The bantamweight division is a shark tank of a division, and McGhee looks so good, and I know he's not fighting the best competition. He came in on short notice in his last fight. Now he fought JP Buys, who's on a losing streak, and I know it's not the best win, but he's looking very good in these performances, regardless of who it's against. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully the UFC giving him a step up in competition in his next fight. Moving up on the card, the first fight on the main card. By the way, the prelims absolutely delivered. The main card was, left a lot to be desired, to say the least. And Josh Fremd versus Jamie Pickett was the first fight on the main card. And I actually missed the first round and a half because ESPN Plus went out for like hours tonight. So I ended up switching to another broadcast to be able to watch the fights. I ended up going back and watching this. I regret it. It was basically a clinch fest. Fremd was just a better grappler, got him down, almost had a guillotine multiple times in the second round, wasn't able to seal the deal. Pickett got a takedown in the third round, got reversed. Fremd ended up on top. Both guys look horrific in this fight, to be quite honest. I wasn't impressed with either guy. Jamie Pickett, we see he doesn't really have any wrestling, even when he doesn't get kneed in the groin. And Fremd just went out there, just, utilized the weakness in Jamie Pickett's game, was able to take him down, was able to control him, landed some decent shots on the feet when they were striking, but they weren't striking for, they were really striking for a bare minimum in this fight. And Jamie Pickett just got taken down repeatedly, got controlled up against the fence repeatedly. And this fight was one of the worst fights on the entire card. But Josh Fremd gets the unanimous decision win. Moving up on the card, Tafon Nchukwi versus AJ Dobson. First round, Nchukwi, by the way, he missed weight. I was wondering about that going into this fight. Just slamming heavy leg kicks on the lead leg of Dobson. Calf kicks. Dobson started to get a little bit more active towards the end of the round, landed some combinations, eventually got a takedown right at the end of the round, did a little bit of damage with the takedown. But I thought it was very close, but I thought Nchukwi took the first round just based off those heavy leg kicks. Second round, very similar to the first round, but I thought Dobson landed a little bit more. Thought he started to come alive a little bit. I thought Nchukwi started to slow down a bit. You had Nchukwi just landing leg kicks and really not landing anything upstairs with his hands. And I thought Dobson landed the better combinations, did the more damage on the feet. So I had the second round to Dobson. So I had it 1-1 going into the third round. Third round, Dobson got a takedown. And basically, Nchukwi literally could not get up. He could not get up. Dobson didn't do a bunch of damage, but the majority of the round was Nchukwi just laying on his back, eating a little bit of ground and pound here and there. So I thought it was pretty clear 29-28 decision for Dobson. But I do think there may be a case to be made for 1 and 2 for Nchukwi, but I think Dobson should have got the win. He did get the win on the judges' scorecards. Not super impressive from either guy. Nchukwi was a massive light heavyweight. Who knows if he's even going to fight at middleweight again because he missed weight by, 3.5 pounds going into this fight. But Nchukwi just slowed down. And Dobson in this fight, the really only negative thing is he just couldn't check any leg kicks, which is a massive negative. But outside of those leg kicks for Nchukwi, he had nothing in this fight, did absolutely nothing in this fight, and couldn't get up once he got taken down. He got taken down, I think, twice in this fight, the first round and the third round. Both times he really couldn't get up at all, had nothing to offer off of his back. And I think he slowed down significantly, maybe because of a tough weight cut. Moving up on the card, Polyana Viana versus Iasmin Lucindo. Iasmin Lucindo getting a second round arm triangle. This was a very good fight. There was a big shot early by Lucindo and kind of rocked her a little bit, but didn't really go after. But it was just more of a stunger. And then Polyana Viana got a takedown. The ref stood him up. There was very little striking, and then Lucindo got a takedown and then controlled her for the rest of the round in the first round. First round was okay, not the greatest, but it was a decent round, and I thought Lucindo took it 10-9, landed the better shots on the feet, got a takedown herself, and when Polyana Viana got a takedown, really didn't do much with it. Second round, Lucindo rocked her, stumbled her, and then just backs up. And I think it happened twice in the second round. Hurt her twice in the second round. Would just back up and not go after her. Doesn't try to capitalize. Then she got a takedown, and then she was basically doing nothing on the ground. Almost got stood up by the referee, but then eventually basically moves to mount and eventually gets an arm triangle. It went from nothing happening to all of a sudden she's in mount getting an arm triangle. Lucindo looked good in this fight, don't get me wrong, but her ground game, really, she did nothing. It was so strange. It was so bizarre how she was just doing nothing, and she was just getting ended up in the half guard and just kind of chilling there for a little bit. And the referee's like, let's work. Next thing you know, she's moving to mount. As soon as that arm triangle was available, she just snatched it up. So it was impressive. I think it's a decent win for her. And to go out there and get a finish like that against Polyana Viana, who went out there and KO'd someone in her last fight, I think it was pretty good. But there's no killer instinct at all. There's absolutely no killer instinct. She's still very young, so I think she can be a promising contender in the women's MMA. But this was a decent win, and she gets the finish. And it's crazy to me, all 3 women's MMA fights on this card ended in a finish, which I thought was pretty crazy. I'm always picking those fights to end via decision, but Iasmin Lucindo gets it done, second round arm triangle. Moving up on the card, the featured fight on the card, Khalil Rountree versus Chris Daukus. Chris Daukus. I feel bad for him. He's on a 4-fight losing streak. All 4 fights he's gotten finished. And that's really bad. And Khalil Rountree finishes him in the first round. And, the fight was mildly competitive up until that point. Chris Daukus was throwing some combinations, getting close on some of them. Rountree was landing some combinations, not really landing anything too crazy. And then boom, straight left, drops Daukus badly. And then it's almost like Rountree didn't want to follow up, but then he just starts winding up like crazy, throws a few shots, but Daukus really was just playing dead at that point, couldn't move at all. Referee steps in. Khalil Rountree just devastated Daukus in this fight. Daukus, he quit his job as a police officer to focus on fighting in the UFC. And since then, he's lost 4 straight times, got finished all 4 times. He moved down to light heavyweight, and now he gets brutalized by Khalil Rountree. I think Daukus is done, to be quite honest. I think he's done. Khalil Rountree goes out there, absolutely destroys him in the first round. A nasty left hand, slept him badly. I mean, he was just... I know he kind of landed and kind of curled up a little bit on his hands and knees, but he was done from the second that left hand landed. And it was just a picture-perfect straight left hand from Khalil Rountree. I think Khalil Rountree deserves to step up in competition. I think he deserves to step up in competition. I know beating the dead body of Chris Daukus doesn't mean a whole lot, but still, I think Khalil Rountree has looked decent enough in his last few fights in the performances that he's put on. And I know he had that close fight with Dustin Jacoby, but I really do believe that Khalil Rountree does deserve a decent step up in competition in the light heavyweight division in his next fight. Went out there and dispatched the dead body of Chris Daukus in the first round. Gets it done via KO. Moving up on the card, the co-main event, probably the most controversial fight of the night. Cub Swanson versus Hakeem Dawodu. Cub Swanson gets it done. 29-28 unanimous decision. I know there's a lot of people screaming robbery. This was not a robbery whatsoever. Cub Swanson, the first round, he started off pretty good, landed some good combinations, but he started to slow down. Dawodu landed a heavy leg kick and a heavy body kick in the first round, and I saw Cub Swanson's demeanor literally change in that first round after those heavy kicks and that heavy body kick and that heavy leg kick. It just seemed like he planned on a leg to throw a strike, heavy leg kick from Dawodu, and it just seemed like his movement was kind of hindered since then. Second round was basically Dawodu just clinching up, but first round I had just barely for Dawodu. I thought it was barely for Dawodu in the first round because Cub had that good start. Second round, I thought it was mildly competitive, but I thought it was pretty clear for Dawodu. You had some jabs from Dawodu, you had some leg kicks from Dawodu, and you mainly had some clinch control by Dawodu, where he's just clinching up, just landing knees to the body. And then at the end of the second round, this is where it can kind of get... Okay, maybe you could score the second round for Swanson, but I probably wouldn't. You had a late flurry by Swanson. But I don't know how many of those landed really flush. It looked like maybe he almost hurt him at the end of the second, but it was kind of, they were both throwing wild. I would give the second round to Dawodu. I thought Dawodu just had the control in the clinch, landed some knees to the body, landed some good jabs in the second round. I thought he won the second round. Third round, close round. You had Dawodu just knee into the body, clinching up, kneeing to the body. You had a nut shot from Dawodu in the clinch. They break him. Dawodu, you could tell, started to fade. And Cub Swanson could sense it, started to put it on him, started to go after him, land some good shots. You could clearly tell Cub Swanson's the fresher fighter. Then got an easy takedown and did a little bit of damage with the ground and pound. I thought the third round was very clear for Cub Swanson. So basically, I had a third round that was clear for Cub Swanson. I had a second round that I thought was pretty clear for Dawodu. And I had the first round, which was 50-50. Could have went up in the air. Could have been Dawodu's. Could have been Swanson's. I leaned Dawodu just barely. So I had Dawodu 29-28 decision. I have no problem with Cub Swanson getting the win here. I was talking about it on stream. This could be a 29-28 win for Cub Swanson. And I'm happy for Cub Swanson. He's an old guy. He's been around in the game forever. He's been fighting at a high level forever. I think Dawodu's criminally overrated, to be quite honest. He's 32 years old. People are still calling him a prospect. He's kind of really not evolved over the past few years, not really changed much. And in this entire fight, he didn't have 3 rounds of gas against an old guy like Cub Swanson where he was clinching up the whole time and just kneeing him to the body. I mean, Dawodu has great leg kicks. He has decent clinch and decent knees in the clinch. But this fight, Cub Swanson just out-cardioed him, in my opinion. And in the first round, he didn't do enough. Dawodu didn't do enough in the first round. So I think it's fine, 29-28 for Cub Swanson. Happy to see him get a win. We have to stop calling every close fight a robbery. Cub Swanson could have easily won this fight. And I wouldn't even hate, I probably would. I was going to say I wouldn't hate a 30-27. Second round, I think, should have went to Dawodu. But you could, if I went back and watched it, and let's say Cub Swanson hurt him at the end of the second round, I could switch over to Swanson, giving him the second round, but I have to rewatch that. But I don't think he did. I think they were just both swinging wildly. But I think 29-28, either way, is a very fair scorecard. One of the judges actually gave rounds 2 and 3 to Swanson, which I think is a horrible scorecard. That was Sal D'Amato, of course. But I have no problem with Cub Swanson getting the unanimous decision, 29-28 decision. Moving up the card to the main event, Vicente Luque versus Rafael dos Anjos. Guys, this was a horrible fight. I'm not even going to go through round by round scoring. I'm really not. I mean, the first round was basically clinch, 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 reverse, reverse. You know, there was really nothing there in the first round. I think Luque almost got a guillotine in the first round, if I'm not mistaken. Then he ended up on top, landed some shots on RDA as RDA started to get up. And basically, in the first round, I had it for Luque. The whole entire fight was just a clinch fest. And I just thought Luque had more control time and landed a little bit more damage in the clinch. I thought the fifth round was clearly RDA's, and that's pretty much it. I had a 3-2 for Vicente Luque in this fight. It was weird. RDA, it seemed like he was able to land very well on the feet, and then he would land a few shots and shoot it on a takedown and then get out grappled. And it was rinse, repeat. He would throw a few shots, get out grappled, rinse, repeat. I can't even remember everything that happened in this fight. I know there was almost a guillotine win for Vicente Luque at one point in this fight, but outside of that, it all just merges together. It was RDA throwing some shots, looking for a takedown, getting reversed, ending up against the fence, then getting taken down himself. He'd get to a knee, he would get back up. It was basically a clinch fest and a battle of the grappling, and Vicente Luque was able to out-grapple him, but not even super significantly. I mean, RDA would get taken down, he would get back up. RDA would get taken down, he would get back up. There was really, the fourth round was horrible. The third round, RDA had some good body kicks and landed some good combinations, but RDA would land combinations and then shoot it on a takedown. And end up, Vicente Luque would defend the takedown and end up getting a takedown of his own and just controlling him against the fence. This was a horrible fight. This was a horrible performance by Vicente Luque and Rafael dos Anjos. But I will say, we have to give Vicente Luque a break. He had that brain hemorrhage in his last fight. He had that brain bleed in his last fight. He's scared to get hit. He even said it in his post-fight. I thought that going on while the fight was going on. I said, dude's scared to get hit. And he took a serious traumatic injury in his last fight, and it kind of made him fight the way he did in this fight. So we have to give him a little bit of a break here. But this was a horrible fight. If Vicente Luque is going to continue to fight like this, I don't want to see him fight anymore. But hopefully this is just a one-time thing. Vicente Luque has always been in exciting fights. So that's why I know a lot of the MMA community is going to crap on him. I think we need to give him a break here. For RDA, I think RDA threw this fight away. This was a close fight, honestly. And RDA, had he just thrown a little bit more combinations, I think he could have won some rounds. I think he could have took 3 rounds. Because Luque's striking defense isn't that good. RDA was landing good body kicks, and he was landing good combinations when he threw them, but then he would stop throwing them and just shoot in on takedowns. In the third round, or in the fifth round, Vicente Luque kind of gassed out, and RDA was able to get him down and land a good flurry on the ground. But that was pretty much it. I mean, this fight was just clinch, 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 trading takedowns, knees in the clinch, more trading of takedowns, more horrible shots by RDA after some combinations, just looking for a takedown over and over and over again. And it was just a really bad fight. I had it 3-2 Vicente Luque. Would never, ever want to rewatch this fight ever again. And basically, it was just a clinch fest. It was just a nonstop clinch fest. I hope Vicente Luque in his next fight, I hope, now he kind of warms up a little bit. He's not as worried about the brain bleed, and maybe it's not on his mind as much. And maybe he goes out there and he is the Vicente Luque of old. But I don't know if that's ever going to happen. That's always going to be in the back of your mind. For RDA, I think he's getting old. I think he's slowing down. And I think he needs to be in the lightweight division. Because Vicente Luque, if him and RDA are the same size, I think RDA probably outgrapples him. But because of the size difference, because of the strength difference, Vicente Luque was able to win in the grappling exchanges and get it done via decision. Let me know what you guys thought of the cards down in the comments. The main card was horrible. The prelims were very, very good. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.